All right, diving right in today. We're taking a deep dive into a ton of really interesting info, starting with this YouTube video I found called Bitcoin on the Brink. It's from that Ivan on Tech channel.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that guy. Seems pretty into crypto.
He really is. And we're also going to be pulling in some other related news and ideas that kind of spun off from that video. You know, like we always do, try to figure out what's really important and what it might mean for you.
Yeah, got to cut through the noise.
Exactly. So we've got political stuff, big moves by big institutions, the whole economic climate. It's a lot.
So like a pretty wild mix. What's in there specifically?
Well, the main video we're looking at really digs into that speech Trump gave at the crypto conference,
All right.
some interesting stuff about what his family is doing with crypto, that trip David Sachs took to the
Oh,
UAE.
yeah, I heard about that.
Then there's Senator, what's his name, Jim Justice, and his big support for Bitcoin. Also, where institutions are putting their money in the crypto world, the potential for like states to actually adopt Bitcoin, what's going on with the war preparations in Europe, and what that could mean for the economy.
Okay, getting serious now.
Yeah. Then there's this whole look at a possible U.S. economic strategy under Trump, an ETF for Pajji Penguin NFTs.
Wait, what? Pajji Penguin NFTs.
Yeah, you heard right. And we'll even touch on Conor McGregor maybe running for president in Ireland. It's all over the place, but we'll make sense of it.
It's definitely a lot to unpack.
It is. So the goal with this deep dive is to filter through all those headlines, see if we can figure out what they really mean, especially when it comes to the future of crypto and the bigger economic picture for, for everyone.
Right, because at first glance, it just seems like random events.
It does. So we're on the lookout for those interesting connections, those key takeaways that you might miss if you're just skimming the headlines.
Looking for the hidden patterns.
Exactly. So first up, Trump and crypto. The video dives into his recent speech at a crypto conference. They called it positive but underwhelming.
Underwhelming. I thought people were pretty excited about it.
Some were, but there were others who were hoping for bigger announcements, like actual changes to crypto taxes.
Ah, I see. So it wasn't the home run some were expecting?
Right. But here's the thing. Even though the speech wasn't as dramatic as some people wanted, the market didn't tank afterwards. The price pretty much held steady around 84,000.
Interesting. So maybe that stability actually means something.
That's what the video argues. They see it as a sign of underlying strength. Like maybe the belief in crypto is strong enough to withstand a little disappointment.
I mean, it makes sense. If people were truly shaken, wouldn't we have seen a much bigger sell-off?
Exactly. So the feeling is that this stability might be a sign that a market bottom is forming. And there's even talk of a potential move up towards $100,000 after April.
Wow, that'd be quite a jump.
It would, but remember, price predictions are tricky. But still, this idea of a market bottom forming after a period of sideways trading, it's a pretty common pattern.
Yeah, I've seen that before. What goes down must come up, right?
Hopefully. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Let's move beyond the speech and look at the Trump family's involvement in the crypto space.
Oh, yeah. They've been making some moves, haven't they?
They have. So we've got this company, MetaPlanet. They're calling it a Japanese MicroStrategy. And they just added Eric Trump to their advisory board.
Now, for those who might not know, MicroStrategy is a company that put a ton of its money into Bitcoin.
A ton. And they made a lot of headlines for doing that. So this comparison to MicroStrategy, it suggests that MetaPlanet might be thinking along similar lines.
Interesting. So more institutional money flowing into crypto.
Potentially. And it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
The Trump Corporation is also putting together a massive $200 million investment fund specifically for crypto.
200 million. That's a pretty serious chunk of change.
It is. And the video really emphasizes that we need to look beyond just what people say and focus on what they actually do, on their actions.
Right. Actions speak louder than words.
Exactly. And these financial links between the Trump family and the crypto world, they suggest a pretty strong alignment of interests.
Makes you wonder if it'll influence policy decisions down the line.
For sure. Then there's their DeFi project, World Liberty Finance.
DeFi, for our listeners, that's decentralized finance. Basically, it's financial services built on blockchain technology.
Right. And this project reportedly holds $500 million in crypto.
500 million. That's huge.
It is huge. Of course, the source does mention that it's down a lot right now.
Yeah, the market's been pretty volatile.
It has.
Yeah.
But still, that level of investment, even with the ups and downs, it really shows how much they believe in the future of crypto.
No doubt. It's a bold bet.
It is. So, it makes you think, how might this level of involvement, both personal and corporate, potentially influence policy decisions on crypto in the future?
It's definitely a question worth pondering.
All right, let's switch gears a bit. David Sachs, that tech investor and podcaster, recently went to the UAE.
Yeah, I saw some headlines about that.
The official line was that he was there to talk about AI and crypto, but our source in the video thinks the real focus was on getting those Gulf countries to invest in crypto.
Interesting. Why would they focus on crypto over AI?
Well, the argument is that there's less common ground between the US and the UAE when it comes to AI. But when it comes to crypto, especially with its potential as a new digital gold and a reserve asset, there's a lot more potential for collaboration and investment.
So it's about finding areas where interests align.
Exactly. And those Gulf nations, they often have these massive sovereign wealth funds that they need to invest wisely.
Makes sense. So crypto, with its potential for growth and its evolving role in the global financial system, would be a pretty attractive option for them.
Right. And the video even mentions some comments Sachs made that seem to suggest a heavier emphasis on crypto during his trip.
Interesting. So the idea is that these countries have a lot of capital to deploy, and they see crypto as a new and exciting opportunity.
Exactly. They're always looking for new asset classes to diversify their holdings, and crypto fits the bill. It offers potential returns and a hedge against traditional assets.
Smart move if they play it right.
Absolutely. Okay, now let's talk about political endorsements and potential legislation. Senator Jim Justice, he's quoted in the video saying that President Trump gets the importance of Bitcoin.
Really? That's pretty significant.
It is. He even claims that Trump supports something called the Bitcoin Act. And this act, it's supposed to be all about the U.S. government buying like 1 million Bitcoin.
1 million Bitcoin. That would be a huge statement.
It would. Imagine the signal that would send to the world. If the U.S. government started accumulating Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, it would really legitimize it as a store of value.
Yeah, it would be a game changer.
Totally. And this all fits into this broader narrative we're seeing of more and more acceptance of Bitcoin at high levels in politics.
From fringe idea to government-backed asset. That's quite a journey.
It is. Okay, let's shift gears again and look at institutional investment trends in the crypto space. The video mentions a survey that found that 83% of institutions are planning to increase their crypto holdings.
83%. That's a pretty clear sign that the big players are taking crypto seriously.
They really are. And this isn't just about future possibilities, it's happening right now. Despite all the volatility we see in the market, these big institutions are still bullish on crypto in the long term.
That's reassuring for those of us who are in it for the long haul.
It is. Now, there's an interesting detail here. Coinbase, the crypto exchange, their data shows that the recent outflows we've seen from some Bitcoin ETFs, those weren't mainly driven by long-term institutional investors.
Oh, that's interesting. So who is selling?
Apparently, it was mostly hedge fund traders adjusting their positions, those guys who are in and out of the market all the time.
Gotcha. So short-term thinking, not long-term strategy.
Exactly. And some people are actually seeing these outflows as a good thing. Like it's a chance for those long-term institutional investors to buy in at a lower price.
A discount. That makes sense. They have a different time frame so they can afford to ride out the dips.
Right. And speaking of governments getting involved, we're hearing about North Carolina. They're thinking about a bill that would put 10% of their public funds into a Bitcoin reserve.
10%. That's a bold move.
It is. Imagine if other states started following suit. It could really push Bitcoin further into the mainstream.
Yeah, it would be like a domino effect.
Totally. Okay, let's move on to something our source calls the printer.
The printer. What's that all about?
It's about the European Commission. They're basically saying everyone needs to be ready for a big war with Russia, like right now. And the video's take is that the EU is going to have to print a ton of money to pay for all the military spending that would come with that.
Ah, so it's about the potential for inflation.
Exactly. If a government spends a lot of money, it often leads to more money being printed, which can make each dollar worth a little less.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And inflation can be a big driver for people to look for alternative assets, like Bitcoin.
That's the argument. And the video points to Germany. They've apparently approved a 500 billion euro defense budget. That's a lot of euros.
It is, and it makes you wonder about the implications for the global economy.
For sure. The video also points out how the EU seems to be taking a more aggressive stance than the US, which might be looking to de-escalate things with Russia.
Interesting. Different approaches, different potential consequences.
Absolutely. So this whole printer situation, it's a big macroeconomic factor to keep an eye on. It could have a real impact on the attractiveness of assets like Bitcoin, which are often seen as a hedge against inflation.
Yeah, it adds another layer of complexity to the whole crypto landscape.
It does. Okay, let's talk about economic strategy, specifically what a potential future Trump administration might do.
All right, let's dive into that. What's the video saying?
The video analyzes some statements made by Scott Bessent, a former U.S. Treasury Secretary, on the All In podcast.
Okay, so we're looking at expert opinions here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the key takeaways are that this potential Trump strategy would focus on a few things. First, gradually reducing government spending by making things more efficient. Second, lowering interest rates.
Lowering interest rates. What would that do?
Well, it would make it cheaper for the government to pay off its debt. But it would also make it cheaper for businesses and individuals to borrow money, which could lead to more investment and economic activity.
Ah, I see. It's about stimulating the economy.
Exactly. And third, they'd try to keep asset prices high.
High asset prices. How would they do that?
It's more about creating an environment where people feel confident about investing. High asset prices are often seen as a sign of a healthy economy, which can lead to more investment and growth.
Interesting. So it's a bit of a psychological game as well.
It is. And lastly, they look to reduce regulations in banking and energy.
Okay, so a more hands-off approach to regulation.
Right. They believe that reducing regulations can make it easier for businesses to operate and grow, which could lead to more jobs and economic growth.
I see. So it's a multi-pronged approach.
It is. Now, here's something specific that could be a big deal for Bitcoin. They're talking about repealing something called SAB 121.
SAB 121. What's that all about?
This was a rule that basically made it hard for banks to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheets.
Oh, so if they repeal that, it would open the door for banks to get more involved in Bitcoin.
Exactly. It could lead to more Bitcoin-based lending services, make Bitcoin more accessible to the average person, and really integrate it into the wider financial system.
That would be a big step towards mainstream adoption.
It would. So when you put it all together, you've got a potential scenario where there's more money floating around, both because of European military spending and U.S. economic policies aimed at boosting the private sector.
Okay, so more money in the system.
Right. And on top of that, you've got high valuations in traditional assets like stocks and real estate. So the argument is that Bitcoin is in a unique position to attract a lot of that capital.
Because it's seen as a high return asset.
Exactly. And because it's seen as a hedge against inflation, which could become a bigger problem with all that money printing.
Interesting. So it's like a perfect storm for Bitcoin.
That's what they're saying. A perfect storm for a potential parabolic bull market in Bitcoin, fueled by more and more institutions getting involved.
Wow, that would be something else.
It would. All right, now for something completely different. Pajji penguin NFTs.
Wait, those meme penguins?
Those are the ones. Apparently they're launching an ETF through a company called Canary Capital.
An ETF for meme penguins. That's
Yeah.
unexpected.
It is. Even the video acknowledges that this might raise some eyebrows, but they make an interesting comparison to Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse. What do penguins have to do with Mickey Mouse?
It's about brand recognition. The idea is that if Pajji penguins become as popular and recognizable as Mickey Mouse, their ETF could see a ton of investment.
I guess anything is possible in the world of crypto.
Right. It shows how these digital collectibles are becoming financialized. You've got meme-based NFTs finding their way into regulated investment vehicles. It's pretty wild.
It is. It's like the lines between traditional finance and the digital asset space are blurring more and more every day.
Absolutely. Okay, last but not least, Conor McGregor might be running for president in Ireland.
The MMA fighter. Seriously.
Seriously. Apparently he's not happy with how things are going in the country, and he's thinking about throwing his hat in the ring.
Well, he's certainly got the name recognition.
He does. And the video points out that this is part of a bigger trend of celebrities and outsiders entering politics.
Yeah, we've seen that happen all over the world.
Exactly. Now, Polymarket, that prediction market platform, they're giving him about an 11% chance of winning.
11%. So not great odds, but not impossible either.
Right. And the video also has some colorful commentary about another potential candidate in that election.
Well, it wouldn't be a political discussion without some opinions flying around.
True enough. So there you have it, a whirlwind tour of crypto news and analysis.
It was quite a ride.
It was. So to wrap things up for you, dear listener, We've seen how a bunch of seemingly unrelated things could actually be converging to create some serious momentum in the crypto market, especially for Bitcoin.
And the increasing involvement of big names and big money, it really suggests that the belief in the long-term potential of these decentralized digital assets is growing stronger.
Absolutely. And understanding these trends, even the ones that seem kind of out there, can help you navigate this crazy financial world we live in.
Right. It's all about connecting the dots and seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly. And the analysis of potential economic strategies, it shows how interconnected everything really is. Your investments, the decisions governments make, it's all part of a complex system.
And understanding that system can give you a real edge.
It can. So here's a final thought for you to chew on. With all this potential for increased liquidity and institutional interest in Bitcoin, and thinking back to those big historical shifts like the Industrial Revolution or the rise of electricity, what completely new services or industries could emerge from the widespread adoption of these digital assets? Or which existing industries could be totally transformed?
It's a question worth pondering.
It is. Is this a major turning point in economic history? And if so, what role will you play in it? Think about it, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.
Until then, keep your eyes on the prize.